What's new today in AI? Today is Monday, December 15th, 2025. Welcome to the deep dive. Normally, we'd be tracking those lightning-fast daily product launches, the immediate headlines. But the material we've pulled together, all sources dated December 14th, it points us down a completely different path.
It does. We found a real scarcity of those big instant news updates.
Which is actually a gift, I think. It forces us into a much deeper analysis. We're moving past the models and into the theoretical critiques that are really shaping how we understand AI's impact.
It's a great chance to step back. Instead of just another incremental feature release, we get to synthesize these crucial concepts from foundational academic research and critical media labs.
So we're moving from the what of AI.
The algorithm's output, right, to the why and the how of its societal structure. We're going to explore everything from deep system pathologies to the heavy physical costs of the chips that we usually just ignore.
Our mission today, then, is to give you a shortcut to being really well informed about the philosophical and material backbone of the AI conversation right now. So let's unpack this. We can start where the algorithm meets human imagination, what researchers are calling the algorithmic imaginary.
And that starts with a very strange name, Krungus.
Krungus, I love this.
If you spend any time at all with generative image models, you've probably heard this name floating around. What's so fascinating here is how these models are spurring this kind of collective myth-making through what you could call accidental cryptids.
Right, so a user inputs a niche, maybe even a nonsensical prompt, like Krungus. And the model, especially those early versions of Daily Mini or Crayon, it produces these consistent, recognizable figures.
Exactly. And the key insight here is that users aren't just seeing random code results. They're interpreting these outputs as evidence of some kind of shared emergent mythology.
As if the AI knows something we don't.
It's proof that modern myths can still persist, maybe even thrive, in the age of AI. It shows how the AI's non-human cognition, its unique way of processing things, it just fuels human social speculation. It takes on life of its own.
It almost makes you feel like the AI is trying to communicate something, which is actually a perfect segue into one of the biggest theoretical critiques we found in the sources, a literal pathology being identified in these systems.
Yeah. It's called model autophagy disorder.
It sounds serious.
It is a heavy concept, but it's essential for understanding model reliability. I mean, imagine a photocopier that just makes copies of copies over and over again without ever seeing the original document.
Okay.
That's essentially model autophagy disorder. It's when machine learning systems are repeatedly trained on synthetic data they themselves generated, they start to, consume their own information.
So if the original data was reality, they're taking a reflection of reality and then using that reflection as the new reality. How does that translate for a user? Are we talking about chatbots giving bad advice or just weird images?
It means they begin to hallucinate or confabulate. They start generating outputs that are wildly inconsistent with their initial training data. For a user, it just means the model is becoming actively, fundamentally unreliable.
So we're not talking about simple bugs anymore.
No, not at all. We're talking about a systemic integrity issue, a pathology where the model is relying on its own distorted reflection rather than reality.
What's also really interesting is the language being used to describe this. It's not just technical jargon, it's philosophical. The sources are using words like dream and myth to describe these core system failures.
It shifts the conversation from data science to philosophy very, very quickly. It forces researchers to confront whether they're building reliable tools or just complex digital myth makers that eventually collapse under their own self-reference.
Okay, so moving from that system pathology to more of a cultural mutation, we also saw how AI is it's turbocharging image remixing and cultural evolution.
Right. The sources reference specific tools, like Nathan Shipley's reverse tumification algorithms.
And what do those do?
This is about the technological transformation of culture, but at lightning speed. These algorithms take familiar characters, the example used is Mr. Incredible, and they just mutate them in these really unnerving, uncanny ways.
And that transformation then immediately drives cultural output, especially on platforms like TikTok or Reddit.
Instantly. The outcome is the spontaneous emergence of these really complex meme templates. You might have seen the 20-panel Mr. Incredible Becoming Uncanny meme.
Oh, yeah.
It layers on these deep-fried filters and eerie audio samples, sometimes using old emergency alert system sounds, into this spontaneous, layered cultural moment. The ability of AI to accelerate that remixing process means culture is evolving faster than our ability to even process it.
It shows the increasing sophistication of AI-aided remixing. Which is a perfect bridge, I think, to the resistance being built against these algorithmic norms.
Exactly.
If we connect that cultural fallout to the bigger picture, we land squarely in our next segment. Critical practice as counter-technology. If the models are showing these signs of structural failure, how are the frameworks that critique them advancing? Let's start with critical race technology theory. CRTT.
CRTT is a framework where scholars are challenging that dominant and often naive narrative that technology is objective or post-racial.
Or politically neutral.
Or politically neutral, right. They argue that anti-blackness functions not as a flaw or some bug in the code, but as the default setting and the organizing logic of digital technology itself.
So this is a deep structural critique. If we accept that premise, how does it actually manifest in a user's daily life? Can you give us a concrete application of that organizing logic?
Well, take documented instances of facial recognition technology failing more frequently on darker skin tones, or algorithmic systems that disproportionately affect marginalized communities in housing or loans.
Things we've seen headlines about for years.
Precisely. Scholars like Tiara Tanksley cite the digital testimonies of Black social media users to expose this pervasive algorithmic bias. They frame it as codified white supremacy. Some call it the new Jim Code, which requires new, unique forms of resistance.
Wait, okay, if we accept anti-Blackness as the fundamental organizing logic, doesn't that make the development of truly ethical AI almost impossible within the current commercial structure? What do the sources say about possible remedies?
The sources suggest that structural change requires structural resistance. So it's not just about tweaking parameters, it's about challenging the entire labor and design pipeline.
And that leads us directly to the next point.
It does, to projects like the Feminist Dataset.
This sounds fascinating. This project aims to redefine the labor behind AI, which is so often completely invisible to us, the end user.
It's a fundamental critique of the machine learning infrastructure. It challenges that common, high-volume practice of relying on outsourced, low-wage labor forces. Specifically, Amazon's Mechanical Turk is the main example for data labeling and training algorithms at scale.
The human cost of making AI look smart, it's usually buried deep in the fine print.
Exactly. The Feminist Dataset, which was initiated through workshops in London back in 2017, it works to redefine the ethics of how we create training data. They advocate for more processual, open-ended methods that prioritize fair labor and critical context.
Moving away from those exploitative sourcing models.
It's about building a better digital framework from the ground up.
And that focus on human agency, it connects nicely to how critical making pedagogy is being used in educational settings. We're seeing high school students using these hybrid tools to visualize really abstract data.
This is one of the most practical applications of counter-technology I've seen. Educational programs, like the one at the Providence Public Library, are fostering data literacy by using paper circuitry and visual block programming.
Physical object.
Yes, things like the Chibi chip, and they use them alongside enterprise platforms like Tableau. So you're bridging the physical and the digital. They call it a complementary graphical user interface of bits and atoms.
I like that.
Instead of just looking at abstract numbers on a screen, learners are physically making and programming components. This fosters real agency. It moves students beyond passively consuming data to actively conceptualizing it. They learn that data isn't just numbers, it's a material outcome.
That is a powerful transition. We've talked about the cultural, the theoretical, the educational fallout. Now let's talk brass tacks, the physical metal and plastic and electricity that powers all this supposedly weightless data. Let's move to segment C chips and infrastructure. This is the material turn.
We talk about the cloud as if it just floats there magically, but it's rooted in this immense physical, concrete infrastructure. And recent research in Dublin is making this topology visible through guided tours, tracing the physical manifestations of the internet in cities.
So they're literally mapping the corporate grid tracing cell towers, fiber optic cables, and these enormous data centers operated by global giants.
Yes. The sources specifically highlight the sheer scale of the Amazon Web Services availability zone in Tallaght, West Dublin. It's this physical industrial anchor for global infrastructure that is, often completely overlooked in the digital discourse. It makes the invisible cost of cloud computing strikingly apparent.
And the economic concentration there is huge. The sources point out that the ICT sector, information and communication technology in Ireland alone, employs over 37,000 people.
That's a massive amount of economic weight tied to one physical location.
But the material cost extends far beyond these glittering data hubs, right? We have some pretty shocking information here regarding e-waste.
Right. Electronic waste represents the global supply chain just breaking down.
Yeah.
Obsolete hardware, often coming from developed nations, is frequently mislabeled. It's called secondhand or third world help
Hmm.
just to bypass environmental regulations like the Basel Convention.
And this junk is then exported, and it winds up in places like the Agbogbloshie e-waste dump in Ghana.
Which has been described as one of the most toxic places on Earth.
And this isn't just an environmental disaster, it's a data security nightmare. And this directly impacts you, the user.
Absolutely. The Karus Collective did a research project where they simply went and bought hard drives from the Agbogbloshie dump.
And what do they find?
They recovered approximately 85 gigabytes of personal data. Emails, financial information, medical records, everything. Just sitting there because the data wasn't properly deleted or encrypted before disposal.
Wow, 85 gigabytes. That single number really quantifies the risk, doesn't it?
It shows how the end-of-life process for hardware creates these massive ethical and security crises.
Yeah.
And that material reality, it extends all the way back to the very start of the production chain.
Right, the sources talk about the geology of it all, starting with something as mundane as sand.
Sand, something we connect to deep geological time and ecology. It's the fundamental ingredient for our microchips.
And once that sand is processed and transformed into a microchip, it is, in the researchers' words, forever short-circuited from its return to the riverbed.
It's a permanent change. And this transformation shows how the immense material requirements of digital infrastructure provoke permanent changes to global ecosystems. They reference volcanic sand mining in places like the Philippines. It makes the digital economy feel suddenly very, very heavy.
That weight brings us to our final segment, policy, governance, and standards. The stakes here range from statecraft all the way to marginalized community survival.
The first critical shift is the institutional recognition of memetic manipulation. We're used to memes being fun pictures, but a NATO study literally titled, "It's Time to Embrace Memetic Warfare."
Wow.
It acknowledged memetic manipulation as a recognized covert method for exerting influence over populations. This elevates the internet meme from a frivolous cultural unit to a tactical governance concern with real geopolitical significance.
The sources, including the critical meme reader, they confirm it. The cultural unit is being weaponized.
And this power dynamic, when it's enforced by policy, can have devastating, life-altering effects. We saw this in the U.S. response to online sex trafficking.
You're talking about the legislation FOSTA SESTA, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. It had these catastrophic, unintended consequences for sex workers.
It immediately led to the shutdown of online platforms that were crucial for their safety. Sex workers lost client screening resources, safety tools, and years of life-saving archive content, basically overnight.
It's a classic policy failure.
It is, and it highlights how marginalized communities have to adapt through rapid technology appropriation. They move quickly to decentralized open-source forums like Hubzilla just to reclaim their agency and ensure their safety. It's a constant race against restrictive policy.
We also have a fascinating case study in digital advocacy showing how public affection can be mobilized to deliberately misdirect political discourse. This is the Dutch context, right? Regarding citizen hesitation toward a vaccine called Vraxar.
A very sophisticated digital strategy. The plan involved creating a pseudo-governmental organization called the National Herring Heritage Fund and launching this absurd but highly engaging Adopt a Herring campaign.
An adoption campaign for fish? That sounds ridiculous, but also deeply engaging.
That's the psychological brilliance of it. It generated national pride and affection through what they called a living Tamagotchi network concept. Users checked in daily, they monitored their fertilized herring eggs via a live-streamed farm.
So they got people emotionally invested in these fish.
Exactly. And this affective focus, this emotional connection, was then used to spread misinformation against the vaccine, citing real environmental grounds like non-recyclable syringes and potential carcinogens.
So it's manipulation at the intersection of patriotism, digital pet ownership, and environmental concern, all to divert focus from the actual health policy debate.
A perfect illustration of how technology is used to leverage human affection to generate political misdirection.
So we've done a complete loop here, from the myth-making capacity of AI models to the foundational critiques of digital systems, the heavy material cost, and now the policy implications. These aren't just one-day headlines. They are fundamental shifts in how we think about AI's role in society.
And if you're looking for tools to apply this critical lens yourself, to move beyond just passive consumption, I have two methodological suggestions drawn from the sources.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, explore the methodology of critical technical practice, or CTP. CTP encourages you to examine software, say your web browser, across three domains at once. The technical, so how the code works, the social and cultural, how it shapes norms, and the interpersonal, how it affects your own memory and attention.
So it reveals the hidden constraints. It helps you realize the technology isn't just a neutral tool.
Exactly. And second, try using unmaking cards or similar systems for learning. Unlike flashcards for memorizing facts, these tools are designed to foster critical reflection. They push you to engage with the concepts, materials, and practices of technology in non-linear ways. It's about questioning the object, not just naming it.
Great takeaways. Let's tie back to that physical reality we discussed in Ireland with our numbers of the day. Number 1, 10,110,331.
A huge number.
That is the total number of IPv4 addresses registered to the top 10 companies in the Republic of Ireland, quantifying the vast physical network presence of giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple.
And tying directly into that immense corporate density, the second number is 37,000.
We mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating.
It does. That's the number of people employed by the ICT sector in Ireland, demonstrating the immense economic concentration tied to these physical digital hubs.
Finally, we turn back to the nature of memes and language itself, especially now that they're recognized as strategic tools.
If memes are now strategic governance tools, and if they're increasing in communicability, their constant decay in meaning suggests a kind of degenerative path for language, what practical impact does this have on our ability to communicate complex ideas?
A really important question.
When discourse seems perpetually menaced by rapid mutation and strategic misdirection, what does it mean for us to even try and build a shared understanding in what increasingly feels like a post-communicational society? That's something to carry with you as you scroll today.